also consider just doing like a later October one. Maybe skip November. Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the August 18th meeting of the Riverfront Advisory Committee. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to open up the floor for public comment. If there is any public comment, step right up. Please just state your name for the record.
Sure, Amy Gendro, I'm at 17 Dame Road. So the three of us are here to talk about the Rivermore Landing condo restrictions. And we met with Steve about this earlier, was that last week? And I think that our goal is to see what the town can do as a larger group, larger entity, to possibly temper the signage, the restriction, to something more like what Bryant Rock has, where it's like, you're on private property, be respectful, pass through, enjoy. So I have, and I'll leave this with you, a petition that I had put out. I have to date 156 responses. And it's simply asking that the town consider something close to an easement. A prescriptive easement would be that an area has been used for over 20 years without restriction, which this clearly has. I've lived in Newmarket for over 30 years. And people have peacefully used that walkway, not the gardens. The gardens are personal property. I 125% agree with that. But for the signage that went up to be so restrictive and intimidating and unneighborly, is very bothersome. I've walked down there with my dog, with my little kids that are now grown. So I guess the concern that we have is how it impacts the community as a whole. And I'm not exactly sure like what extent of conversation we can participate in with you, but our voices should be heard. And we have different perspectives. Each three of us have different perspectives. Whether the signs have been put up for the liability end of it, I don't know. If something dramatic happened where somebody came out and there was a big party in their garden, I don't know. But the outward appearance of these signs is really offensive. Having those signs does not eliminate Rivermore Landing from being liable if somebody is there and gets injured. It's still their liability. They own it. The only way that that could change would be if the town has easement. The town would assume liability. And Steve said that that was something that he opened to a conversation. The other part of the conversation we had was a little bit thinking more out of the box. And I was at the state level Lamprey River Advisory or meeting last month, talking about conservation of the river and how that really does involve the entire community. And from my standpoint, why would the community care if they can't use it? So that impacts conservation of the river itself. So we were talking about, with Steve, the possibility of a wooden boardwalk along the seawall extending to the dock area for the marina, and then over to the other portion of the river walk that's there, which is pretty short. So I guess me coming here is just kind of a cry for help and an opportunity for me to put myself out there for you as tell me what I can do to help. Tell us what we can do to help. There's quite a bit of people on Facebook that are unhappy with this, so I know that it's not just me and it's not just the 156 signatures that I have. Some people added little comments and I printed that out too. So I guess my hope is that this can be part of your conversation.
Thank you for your comment. Does the town have a copy of that?
This is an updated one. Can I leave this with you?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Steve has one, but it only had 130 signatures at that point.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
much appreciated.
Yeah.
And thank you for your comment. Would anyone else like to make public comment at this time?
Yeah, I would.
Please just state your name and address again too.
Yeah, my
Thank you.
name is Sherry Cohen, and I live at 15D Water Street. I'm one of the 4 Langs Wharf Condo Association residents. So we live in the building closest to the boat ramp at Shanda Park. I shouldn't say closest because there's also 13 Water Street, and there are 2 residents who live at 13. I am a short-time resident, so I'm just going to regale you with a little background so you kind of understand from a shorter term where I'm coming from. I've lived here almost exactly 2 years to the day. I moved from a place very specifically to be in a community that felt more inclusive. I came from somewhere with a lot of exclusivity and privilege, and I'll just say it, Rye, New Hampshire. I have to be located in the general geography of the seacoast of New Hampshire for other personal reasons, and after looking for a long time, we landed on Newmarket, and it just felt right. So that's just a little background. Fast forward about a month and a half ago or so, my neighbors, so I also abut directly the Rivermore building. You know, my unit is the one right next to one of their access points. The the signs started going up. And one of them is right on the, their property, but right on the corner of mine. And again, private property, Riverwalk ends here, no trespassing, you're under video surveillance, very foreboding. I was upset, and I didn't kind of have the guts or the back information to address it myself, but one of my neighbors did, and it ended up being a little bit of a skirmish. So that's who I am, and that's why I'm here. Unfortunately, I get to look at that sign every day, and I just wanted you to understand why it's a little chilling to me personally. So that's just the personal part. The sign, in my observations, and they are aplenty, being where I am, right? People walk through there, all the time, coming from both ends. But I would say many of them begin their Riverwalk walk from that Shanda Park area because of parking and, all sorts of other reasons. Kids with scooters, people with strollers and dogs and all of the things. It's lovely. When I moved there, obviously, I knew that that would be the case. Right in my front yard, because it is my front yard, not my backyard. That's where my front door is all of this activity. I had no delusion that I wouldn't be sharing that space. So there was that. I found out about the easement and the different parts of those things later, after being here for a little while. I can tell you that observing the people, talking to the people, those signs create a lot of tension, confusion. The obvious part is that it's a disconnect, right? Because you're allowed to come through the Chinburg property, but then not through the Rivermore property. And then you're Rivermore being the longest stretch of it and right in the middle. And then you're allowed to be walking in my little part from 13 to 15 Water Street, but not to go beyond it. A lot of times I observe people walking from Shanda to the corner of my house and looking up at that sign and kind of being confused. I would say about 50% of them turn around and walk back the other way, and about 50% of them continue on. If we're calling it a river walk, by the way, that part from Shanda to my house was approximately 150 feet. Not much of a river walk, especially if you came with those things and you're thinking this is what you're doing. I'm going to just give you a couple of examples, and I will let other people have their turn. One of my first experiences was one of the residents at Rivermore. This was, again, personal and way before those signs went up. I had literally just moved in. We had a pretty decent storm and flooding, and the whole of Shanda Park was flooded. I had an emergency situation, and I needed to get out in my car. I have elderly parents who live in Exeter, and they needed me. I went to take my car through their gravel drive and onto the road so that I could get out of my house, and I was stopped. What am I doing? I'm not allowed to do it. Got to go back the other way. And I said, do you see what's going on? It's a flood. I can't drive my car through. I need to go. Wasn't having it, and told me that it was our responsibility. We should pay to fix it. Of course, I went through anyway, but it was unfortunate. I thought it was a one-off. Didn't put a lot of credence. Just one individual who was maybe having a bad day. Okay, moved on. Now we're to here. Since these signs have been up, while I observed, some people I also talked to and let them know that they're very welcome where we are in our area. You are welcome here. We're so happy you're here. Everyone should get to enjoy this. A bunch of them have told me that when they did continue walking through, they were in fact harassed. Whether they were being leered at, like you don't belong here kind of a thing, chased, verbally told they need to leave, but in a very discriminate way. One time I was sitting out on my deck, And this same interaction was about to happen, but instead of me speaking to the people, someone from Rivermore came right up and did it herself. She told these people what their deal was and literally said, but for people like us, you can walk through. Again, it was very disturbing to me. A week ago on a Tuesday, we had a concert at Shanda. This was the one that the police sponsor, so it was the ice cream and the pizza and all the things. Was very well attended. It was really actually quite crowded, and as you know, coming in Water Street, it's very hard to do that if you also have a car and there's all these kids and animals and families. When it was winding out, it was very hard for some people to exit, and there were elderly people and in cars. One of my neighbors let a car go through onto the Rivermore property to exit that way so that they could feel safe and there wouldn't be a safety issue for the people that were still all congregating on Water Street and by the boat ramp and in the park. Later that evening, one of the residents had called the police on the neighbor. The police came and, had to address the complaint. It wasn't the first time, so this is a regular thing. So I will also say that, unfortunately, the town is now dealing with a lot of what seems to me to be wasteful to our public safety resources, but that's just another side thing. Very recently, and this is the last example I'll give you, I was actually standing talking to my new friend Amy. I had literally only met her a week before. I walk in front of probably hundreds of people's houses, the front of their house, just as I do through Rivermore, because I walk every day through Rivermore, up Chinburg, Bryant Rock, and out up Lamprey, and out to Dame Road, walking past all people's houses. I saw the signs that she had with the QR code, the petition, and I went and I introduced myself. I knocked on the door, and Amy was there. We met. Since then, we've been talking back and forth about, all sorts of things. Fast forward, last week, she's down walking her dog, and I'm out on my deck having coffee. And we're just chit-chatting. I'm up on the second floor, and she's down here, and all of a sudden, one of the residents at Rivermore literally comes and stands at the corner of my house and is just staring at me for what seemed like a very long time. It may have just been a few minutes, but it felt like I was being harassed. So I finally interrupted Amy, and I said, hang on a second, Amy. And I looked over and I said, can I help you with something? Do you need something? Said something very rude, turned around and walked away. All of this to let you know, it feels terrible. It just feels terrible. I will just conclude with letting you know, I know that this committee, council, that part of your mission, along with seawall repair, which seems very counter if people can't access it, but you're going to help because a lot of the seawall is theirs. I know much of it is ours, and we go out annually and do the best that we can to reinforce it. And I have a meeting coming up actually this week with the town engineer to discuss doing that with better guidance or with some more professional skills than we've been able to do it. But the public access enhancement part of your mission, I think, is the important thing here. And I will just say the large majority of people who may have access to the Lamprey Riverfront would do so either on the Chinburg or the Langs Wharf Condo Association and Rivermore side of the river versus the sanctuary, or versus people who are better equipped to access the river further upstream and things like that. That's the main part of it, and the downtown business center and development. Again, if what we're talking about is that's the access that we want to enhance, then all we got is 150 feet of it. I will say for Langs Wharf Condo Association, if the fix to all of this is extending a boardwalk from the current marina upper dock out towards Shanda, we are very happy to have that connection and access right to our corner. Let people enter it and exit it right there. It's all yours. So thank you for hearing me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. So I'll kind of take a quick pause here. You know, obviously this is something I'm aware. Obviously, this is an issue that people feel strongly about in town. It's why it's on our agenda. It's why it's on, you know, all the Facebook message posts. I'd like to just kind of moving forward, you know, please say your piece. Let's try to stick to a couple minutes here. You know, if you want to cede your time to somebody else. I also know some folks here are from Rivermore. If you'd also like to make comment, feel free to do so. But just, you know, obviously just try to be, you know, as civil as possible across all of it, because everyone's aware it's a touchy issue. So with that, I'll continue public comment if anyone else would like to make one.
My name is Nancy Wood. I live at 47 Bay Road. And I've been in Newmarket since 1989, and I've lived on Bay Road now for about 33 years. And I walk a lot, and I have walked behind those mills for years and years and years. And I just want to say, you cannot separate, and I know you know this, we just want to find a way to work with you, to work with the town, to do whatever we can to try and keep access to that area of the town open. My mother lived with me for 5 years. She was bound in a wheelchair, and I would take her for as many walks as I could. But to get downtown, that was the most accessible route for us, because we could use the bridge, and then she wanted to go behind there and see the gardens. I had no idea really that, you know, until now, what the situation was there. But I just, you know, Lamprey River, it's part of the third grade curriculum in this town. You cannot separate the identity of this town from that river. And people have been enjoying that walk for decades. And my only thing that I want to say is I want to find a way to keep that access open, whether it's that road or a boardwalk or another way. But it is heartbreaking to someone like me who loves it. I love this town. I love that walk. I love those gardens. I appreciate that work that goes into what people do behind there. But I live on Bay Road. I got hundreds of people walking in front of my house and biking and cycling, everything, right there. It's not on my property, I get it, but I don't have any privacy from all of that, and I welcome it. It's part of our community, and I don't want to see gentrification destroy this town. This is a community. We've worked really hard to build community in this town. The big backyard bash was amazing. I just want to help continue to build community, and that river walk is a big piece of it, so thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
My name is Michael Yankee, resident of Rivermore and president of the Rivermore Board. And I think all these gentlemen will cede their time to me, so if you give me a couple minutes, I'd appreciate it. First of all, there's been a lot of stuff on Facebook. We have, as a community or as a board, decided not to comment and get on any keyboard wars with anybody. It doesn't serve anybody any purpose. So there's a lot of misinformation that I'd like to get on the public record to correct. First of all, that is a private road. We pay for the road. We shovel the road. We plow the road. We have to repave the road when it needs more work. So unlike things people have on Facebook that the town owns it and does that work, that's not the case. The seawall, which was asked about earlier, that big section that with the large stones was repaired at the cost of Rivermore Landing, not at the cost of the town. So there's no shared cost there, and there's no shared cost in the pending work we may have to do on the other portion of the dock. So I'd just like to clear, especially those two pieces up, because it's pretty important that people understand that it is private property. It's no different than anybody else's backyard, frankly. And what the town does have is they have an easement for emergency vehicle access and for the water main. And Chinburg has an easement for their owners to be able to get out that way because of the nature of their other exit. They can't turn left there. So those are the two easements that exist. We've had a situation in the last couple of years where somebody got injured on the property, and we had a threatening of a lawsuit, and we had to pursue attorneys, and we had to also work with our insurance company. And the advice from our insurance company said that if we don't have signs up quoting the statutes and stating as private property, et cetera, that we would not be, that they would not be covering us and would be liable for it ourselves. So that necessitated further signs that said private property in addition to the signs that were there beforehand. In addition to that, I know that there's a lot of people that use it. I know it's a nice asset. That's why people bought the houses there, because it's a nice asset. And I think that Rivermore people had been very lax about, or very open about people going through there for a long time. But it's the old song, one bad apple spoils a whole bunch. In the last couple of years, particularly since the town charrette, where it was presented on the website as public access as a future, people took that as a current, and the people coming back there almost doubled overnight since then. And then since then, we've also had instances where we had a picnic table out there that people were sitting at that got broken and smashed overnight. I know I personally have come back from Logan Airport late at night, and more than one time had to ask people to leave the property back there because they were back there drinking beers and leaving beer cans everywhere. We've had people picking flowers. We've had people just bringing their breakfast down and sitting in our lawn chairs and hanging out on our property, having their lunch and having their breakfast, etc. I mean, I don't think anybody in this room that's a property owner would be thrilled if they looked out their back window and there were people sitting in your lawn furniture. I don't care how open you want to be in the town. I don't care how many people walk by the front of your house. If people are camping themselves out, causing destruction, and frankly, we only have like 8 feet in some areas between people's first floor units and the street. So people can look right in the unit, which is pretty intrusive. I know that people say they have people walking by the front of the yard, or even Lang's Wharf with people walking on the front of their yard along the water. They've got a big buffer. There is no buffer when people are walking down that street. So, I mean, again, if you had people walking right by across your back patio essentially every day, I don't think anybody would be thrilled, even the people that signed the petition. So those are valid points, and people I don't think are personalizing this. If this was their backyard, would they want people doing the same thing? If it was their furniture, would they want it floating in the river because some people were screwing around? I mean, just 2 Sundays ago, there were people down there that weren't residents swinging from the branch and broke a pretty big branch on the only real legitimate tree we had back there. And those type of things, those aren't just annoying. Those aren't just people walking by. Those are destructive. Vandalism, if you want to call it that. I don't care. And as far as the police getting called, the reason the police were called, no, it wasn't because somebody moved a chain. It was because there's an individual in Lang's Wharf that has repeatedly harassed, abused verbally, and technically probably rose to the level of assault several of our residents, including female residents out there by themselves, and this is a pretty big guy, intimidating them. So yeah, we had to call the police because it needs to stop. The harassment needs to stop. The abuse needs to stop. And that's not the way you address it. This is the way you address it. You come to a meeting and you ask questions and you try to get in community involvement. That's great. But that can't be accepted. So if it happens again, police will be called. I mean, it's just not acceptable behavior on anybody's part. And we get that also when people are in the seats and people approach them. And there's 72 owners there, residents, and 5 other owners from commercial. 77 units, you're going to have some people that aren't very pleasant. They're not pleasant to people that live there. So I'm sure there have been confrontational conversations, which I regret, but I can't control them. But for the most part, every conversation I know I've had, and I think most people have had, has been more of, hey, do you know this is private property? You really can't stay here. You need to move along. It hasn't been confrontational. And it's not our intent to be confrontational. So these are a lot of the different factors that go behind this. I met and Jay met with the town planner about a month ago, I think before the last committee that you guys had meeting. And I welcomed him to come into one of our future owners association meetings and talk to us about what the town would like to do. So that invitation stands to do that. And I also explained to him that Rivermore has fairly draconian rules in our bylaws where in order to change the usage of a common space, which the area in the back is common space, it requires 100% owner approval. So that's a pretty big hurdle to get over. I don't think I could tell the owners of Rivermore I was going to give them $10,000, but they had to decide one way to split it up. They wouldn't be able to come up with a way if they wanted all $1,000 bills or a lot of hundreds, and they'd end up not getting their money. So as far as having this go through, I don't know how we'd be able to pull that off, but we're open to discussions with the town. But I want people to I just ask people to ask to next time they go home and they're looking out their back window, if there was somebody in their chair or walking across their deck essentially, or picking their flowers or riding their bike and jumping over things, I don't think anybody would hesitate to ask them to leave or to call the police. But yet we're being asked to just roll over and deal with it. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, Ray Marshall, I'm a owner at Rivermore Landing. I just want to clarify that we are not elitists. I was born in Newmarket. I grew up in New Village, left, raised my family, came back. It's a great town, and just want to clarify that we are not a bunch of elitists that are trying to change this town. As far as our neighbors, that is owned by the town. The town maintains it. The town is liable for anything that happens there. So I think we need to keep that in mind as we talk about our property versus our neighbors.
Thank you. Yeah. Would anyone else like to make public comment at this time? I thank everyone for bringing your concerns to this. Obviously, again, as we've talked about, it's a subject people feel strongly about in town, and appreciate everyone, staying civil and making public comment, as is your right. So thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 3, we'll start with a brief, just administrative review and approval of the minutes from June 9th and July 14th. I have no comments on either. Does anybody else have any comments?
I'll make a motion that we approve both the June 9th and July 14th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second?
There's a second.
Gotcha. All in favor?
Thank you. Aye.
Aye. No, thank you. So,
Can I make a motion? We modify the agenda to address A2 first before we get into, and then that gives more of a time to.
agreed. Yeah, agreed. So, we'll move to agenda item A2, which is, most of the function of today's meeting was to make 3 specific recommendations to town council for their consideration. Agenda item A2 is to make a motion to town council to have town staff meet with Rivermore for coordination negotiation when the town sees that best fit. Gentleman commented earlier, an invitation's been extended. Obviously, this seems like a topic that requires additional coordination and communication at this time. So I'd like to make a motion to town council that town staff meet with the Rivermore board at a future meeting. Does anyone want further discussion on that?
So just to be clear, I will present it to the town council Wednesday.
That would be appreciated if you could bring this to town council. And if they want to ask for additional information on this or any of the other motions, happy to supplement.
All right, so just to be clear, what I'll talk about, and I can present that petition too, if you want. We have a session where we talk about committee meetings and what we're doing. I would present that petition, explain what was going on, and what our recommendation is that we ask Steve to ask Bart basically to, get in touch with the HOA group and attend meetings and see what kind of compromises they can come up with. Does that sound reasonable? No?
Agreed.
Okay, well, I remember that between now and Wednesday, probably not.
Can put together like a couple sentences too if needed.
Yeah, if you
but
wanna
that's the essence of it. Yeah.
Okay, if you want to, or if you want to send me something to.
Yeah. We can do that.
You're okay with that too? Okay.
So yeah, for restating, I can put together like a 2 to 3 sentence summary of that. But effectively, what Joe just said is correct of what I'd like. Yeah, when committee reports come up, for that to be an item of discussion. So I'll make a motion to elevate that conversation and that recommendation from this committee to town council. If anyone,
I'll second.
all in favor?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Yeah, continuing with that, we'll continue to suggest out of order just for applicability, and, this being relevant to item A2 that was just voted on. Item A3 is for a general recommendation also to be elevated to town council for providing a legal easement review of all riverfront properties, as we've discussed a few times. That this is not, singular to Rivermore. This is literally just review of all ownership of the abutting properties and the mill projects and site plan developments and things like that. As we talk about public access to the river, as we talk about, rite of passage extending Riverwalk, it's essential that the town know what is actually publicly accessible now, what needs further negotiation or clarification. So I know this is something we've talked about a couple times at this committee. Do we need to talk about it any further detail, or everyone feel comfortable with that?
Well, I think you need to have those easements acknowledged and clarified before you can move forward
Yes.
with any of this, so
Yeah.
that definitely needs to be done.
Okay.
And as I've stated, we've looked at our easements and understand what they are, as Michael's also stated earlier,
Yep.
in regards to Rivermore's.
Correct. Correct. So yeah, I would also make a motion to elevate that conversation to town council as a formal recommendation for legal review of easements.
Can I ask Barb to talk to that? I believe they've already been looking at all the easements, right? Is that?
So we haven't sent it to the lawyers yet, for Riverfront contractor. So we've done it internally. We haven't sent it to the lawyers yet, so if you want, I think the motion should be to send it to our town council, our legal counsel for review. I think we're fairly confident in the easements that are on Bryant Rock and Chimberg and Lang's Wharf. I guess the last piece would be, but obviously it would be nice for clarification exactly, where public access is and other applicable easements. So I think the committee is right that a comprehensive review of everything is warranted, so we can put together a overview or a map and a narrative or call-outs on where access is allowed to the public, where are there utility easements, because it is a very complicated area. So so I think having that opinion from the towns, I want to say the town's legal counsel, and that comprehensive review would be well suited.
Do we need the town council to actually tell you to do something? You're kind of,
I could do it, but I mean,
would you feel better if the council brought
I
it to
would,
them?
yeah, because I think it's a sensitive area, so I think it's part of your update from this committee too, because you are the ad hoc committee. It would be appropriate.
Okay.
So yeah, then I guess modify that. If the town has invested time internally, then would modify this to a recommendation for town council to have that internal review sent to the other town council, the legal council. So I would make a motion for that, to have the town council recommend that town staff send the internal review to the solicitor.
Excuse me, is it might be outside, I don't understand our contract, so it might be outside that scope, so it might be something additional. So it's just something to double check. So that's why I couldn't do it by myself. It might require town council action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And moving to our third recommendation, kind of what we've spent basically the better part of the last 3 months looking at and refining, with Bart's help, obviously. He's been instrumental to this, but The creation of the coastal resilience incentive zone along the waterfront. So there's a map kind of memorializing the rough boundaries that we've kind of talked about and refined, and then prepared warrant article language that could be used to develop a capital reserve fund, ultimately to support future development in that area. So overall, just kind of creates a tax increment financing district that can be leveraged by the planning board review process, and can work as a tax abatement on property bills for improvements done by landowners specifically for the benefit of the riverfront. So I think we beat this one up pretty good over the last 3 meetings. Kind of where we had ended July was, with the map that we're looking at here, and ultimately moving this to town council, just wanted a chance for more committee members. There was only 3 of us at the last meeting, so we just wanted additional people to have the opportunity to weigh in on this, if at all possible. But absent any comment, the motion would be for town council to consider creation of this coastal resiliency incentive zone and propose warrant article language, and then that could be discussed more at the town level if they feel it rises to the need of actually being a warrant article presented to the voters, or if it's...
I would at this point just basically tell the council that we're working with Bart to develop some warrant articles for the coastal resilient zone and the capital reserve fund, and I'll explain a little bit about what they are, but say Bart's going to give us all the details that are at a future meeting.
I think that's fine. Bart can speak to that.
So it's not totally clear. So there's 2 things here. One is the establishment of that tax increment financing the coastal resiliency zone.
Thank you.
So that can happen 1 or 2 ways. One, town council can approve it on its own, or they can say, we want the voters to vote on it, let's send it to warrant. And then the second is an actual capital reserve fund that's separate from this zone. This has to go to warrant. Okay, so what this is for is for saving money especially from the town saving money for future improvements in the riverfront area. That's what this warrant, I created this warrant language for. So, Joe, for you to report to town council is that I'll come into a future meeting to present both. And I'll work with Steve on when that will be. If the town council wants.
No, thanks for the clarification. I had that written on my June agenda that these had to be separate items, and
just 2
clearly
different things.
Did not do that. So the warrant itself would be a separate item.
Don't go away, because I do have some questions on it. So, is Newfields involved in any of this, or?
Nope, just us.
Okay, but some of the area is in Newfields, right? Or is that?
Nope, ends in Newmarket.
That's Newmarket too?
Yeah, so part of Newmarket, you're talking about this area, this little lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, Newmarket is town boundary, dips into Newmarket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And in the upper right-hand corner, none of that's Durham, right?
It's all ours.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Any questions on the warrant article or map?
I do have a question on the CRIS. I know that Rye is the only other community that has adopted this, and I think...
They haven't got back to me yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's something I'll end up presenting to the town council. When I
Okay.
get that information on, what other communities have used this, and if so, how, or if they adopted it and not used it. So, I'm still waiting on them to connect with them, so.
And I'm willing to go to whatever meeting for whatever that's worth whenever it ultimately gets presented to the council.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be sometime September, October. We'll get on to town council's agenda and present them. or talk about these, yeah.
Yeah, sometime September.
Yeah, we'll shoot for that. I think that'd be best.
Okay. So I guess for purposes of the next meeting, it's just,
Yeah, Wednesday is too late now.
Yeah,
But
to
that'd be
bring
good,
up
a
that
good way to
info.
set the table, to inform them of what the intentions are. Great.
there's been discussion at this level on potentially extending this. Barb will come present at future date. So I guess that's more of an update than an actual motion, more than anything.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. Does anyone else have any further discussion or comment about any of those three items before we move on?
For if town council votes on authorizing staff to work with Rivermore, I just need an invitation to a board meeting. I remember we did speak with Michael, and he said that they would come out and invite, but you guys at Rivermore are not ready yet. So when you are, I'm happy to come. So I just want to make that. And town council says yes. So that's good.
Yeah, good point of clarification. Just formalizing it on both sides.
Do you need legal counsel to go with you, just to?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just setting expectations, prior to the meeting on what's being discussed. So again, that's what, between town staff and the board, prior to going to a board meeting, we can have that preliminary discussion. And yeah, at this moment, I don't see it's necessary. Yeah. So.
Excellent. Other than that, the only other items I'd kind of marked for discussion, one was just an update on the coastal resilience grant and some of the tangential work, but I know Lindsay's tracking that. Do you know any updates?
The project space?
Yeah, looking at some of
Yeah.
the concept development things, the cost estimate stuff.
Yeah, I know, so this is kind of, actually is linked to the proposed warrant article. So I know that Lindsay will be seeking some some funding through the capital reserve process towards those projects. So there are some funds, reserve funds that could be utilized towards that. I think the idea was to, utilize what we have right now, and then, hopefully this new reserve fund comes online, and then we can start using that. We can start, using that fund specifically for improvements within the downtown riverfront. But right now there is a path, but this would be cleaner once a reserve fund specific for the downtown riverfront is established. So for instance, like stormwater infrastructure, there's stormwater down there, so the Creighton Street station, or the sewer infrastructure. So having this extra capital reserve fund, I think, would be beneficial. So, because then we can also supplement that with grant opportunities. So to answer your question is, we are pursuing opportunities to move forward with that phasing plan.
Is there any talk about doing something similar, like establishing like an actual capital reserve for that at this time?
It would go through that. So eventually, right now there's different, establishing this new capital reserve fund.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I completely misread this.
Yeah, yeah.
This is that.
That's that.
I was thinking this was the warrant article for
that's not the warrant.
adopting
No, that's
the CRIS.
No, that's for that. So depending if town council wants to send it, then I'll create the language for
Yes.
the zone.
Gotcha.
The one that's in front of you is the establishment of that downtown riverfront capital reserve.
Okay.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
I'll mention it Wednesday at Wednesday's meeting, but you'll set up with Steve when you're going to actually
Yeah.
come
Exactly.
down to- Okay.
Yeah, just say, yeah. Just give them, it's basically during your updates, what was discussed here, and obviously the recommendations that were voted on today. Yeah. And then I'll work with Steve.
Okay. My understanding there, the other one was update on master plan process. So I admit I've been busy, but I've kind of lost the thread on where we are with that. You know, obviously was there early July when planning board kind of discussed the chapter.
Yeah.
So what's next?
So they're just going to do that for each chapter. It's going to
Okay.
be a long process because they only meet once a month. So I imagine we'll have everything done by early next year.
Okay. So it's
yeah,
still multiple months.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that we're still working on. We're drafting. That's let's see, community facilities and utilities, land use, and last one's recreation. So those three we're still developing, and then the planning board is reviewing chapters that have already been developed. So again, until the planning board decides to may have a couple workshops in between their meetings, they're going to just review one chapter at a time prior to their meeting. So it's going to be a little slower than originally anticipated. So in the interim, we take their comments that they had of the chapter, and then adjust accordingly. And we're also going to make some formatting changes. But from my understanding of the meeting, and it wasn't dramatically too much kind of change in it. So
No, it seemed like they liked the content.
They liked the intent and the content. It's just how it's presented is the major, let's say, issue, but next step to improve upon.
Okay. You anticipate any further action from us, or is our work effectively done here?
Effectively done. I think what would just be great is just when it comes time to vote on it, just showing support. So.
Is there, and this might ultimately be a question extended to Liz, but I know we had met a couple months ago and kind of beat up this implementation table. Is there like a final version of that somewhere?
Still working on that. So
Okay.
basically what we're doing is putting them all together. So so that's what we're doing right now. But I can send you what we have, based on the conversations and the recommendations. You have the planning board. The planning board might tweak it a little bit too, but not too much.
Okay.
So there's going to be two. One's going to be a little more comprehensive, a little more columns than what's going to be public interfacing. Public interfacing ones, because it's going to be more priority, what's the action, what's the goal, and then timeline. And then the administrative side of it's going to be, where are there grant opportunities, who's, let's see, what else, costs and whatnot. So, et cetera. So there'll be two different versions of that. Just so it's just not overwhelming on the public interfacing side.
Anyone have any questions or follow-ups? I'm good. Okay. Okay. I have nothing further. Is there anything anyone wants to discuss further for today?
Nope, next meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, so can establish a next meeting. So partially the reason that I'm asking for an updated one of these is I'd just like to look at a couple of the potential what's next things. I think some of the larger like capital project stuff is still going to lag. The capital reserve fund's a good step. We need to make through the grants, do the H&H study, all the stuff we've talked about. So I think those ones are further out. But, same way a couple of these, like the RSA and the CRIS have been addressed over the last few months. Would like to pick a couple additional ones potentially at the next meeting to kind of keep moving forward and looking at.
Yeah. We may have, so there may be a couple things coming up that we can discuss, and, we're just discussing internally, so we can talk about it at this committee.
Yeah.
some opportunities, so.
Also too, coming up, they're gonna start working on the budget that goes into effect next year. Is there anything that, we might wanna ask for? We're asking for some funding, 'cause we normally don't ask for any funding, but there may be some things that we might wanna do.
I would potentially ask that the capital reserve fund.
So,
actually
yeah,
get-
that's a good idea.
Well,
Joe. So-
seeding that, maybe, $10,000 to seed into that, may be one thing, but is there anything else that we might want to undertake, or any studies or additional studies?
I think we're working on that through some grant funding. I think there's other projects too. So maybe that's something we can talk about. What I'm wondering would be good is maybe the Riverfront Advisory Committee or some entity, I'll check in who that may be, proposes that establishment to the CIP committee, just go through that, and then, so I'll follow up this week on that. And then, it is kind of a tight timeline, but worst case scenario, I'll propose it. Through planning and development. And then, it can inform you when that meeting is going to be, and then you just come in and support it. So I think we'll do it that way. It'll be easier.
Okay. I feel like one of the things Lindsay had mentioned to me, and I know she's not here today, but under that coastal resiliency fund, I thought there was some cost estimate development for a couple of the concepts.
They do have that, yeah.
So I feel like, obviously more work may need to be done to flesh those out, but if that kind of establishes at least an economy of scale for these, then that might be partially the answer for not only seeding this, but starting to set an intention of funding something specifically.
Yeah, so maybe that's part of the discussion next meeting is, what's the first step? What do we need to, start saving towards, which engineering study or whatnot to get to? The end goal of those projects, completing those projects. I'll talk to Lindsay about that and work with you, Sam, on what discussion there will be.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. I know we talked about it for like a second before the meeting, but so second Monday would be September 8th. Yeah, Labor Day's early. Labor Day's the 1st this year, so the 8th is second Monday, which I think works for me.
Okay, so September 8th.
Yep.
Angry, that sound good to you too?
That works for me.
Okay, then yeah, September 8th would be next. We can go from there. I know second Monday of October would be Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. But I think potentially depending on what we talk about at the next meeting and if there's any action needed to support any of the budget stuff, then we can set the next meeting of if we feel like that needs to be done sooner or if it can be
Yeah,
delayed.
it'll be sooner, it'll be next meeting. That's why I propose the establishment of that fund. So I think we're gonna talk about any budgetary items, it's gotta be next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
agreed.
the budget has to be in by the 15th of September.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Okay. Any final thoughts for the day?
That was fun. You handled it nicely.
I think everyone was very respectful. It's obviously something folks are impassioned about, but I thought everyone did it respectfully, which is obviously helps the situation. Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you everyone for your time.